My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome back to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminski, filling in for Dave Dubo. And have you ever wondered how to turn the roller coaster ride of real estate investing into a smooth journey towards generational wealth? Well, today, my guest, Tim Tepes, he's gonna correct me on it. I'm bad with last names, but I'm good with interviews. A seasoned real estate investor from Pennsylvania. He's here to share his secrets on mastering the art of passive income through strategic 1031 exchanges and building a legacy for the next generation. Tim, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So can you share us a little more about your journey from actively managing a rental business to focusing on passive income through that 1031 exchange we were talking about?
Well, with real estate, once you become an investor, you have to deal with everyday headaches, with the tenants, the good and the bad. And with anything in life, with any business you have good days, good tenants, bad tenants, good customers, bad customers. And right now I'm at the point in my life where I want to start slowing down. My parents, I could see now up in age, and they really didn't get to enjoy themselves. So now I'm looking at my age right now. It's time to sit back and try to relax and enjoy the fruits that I've raised on the trees and start picking out and relaxing and enjoying life a little bit more.
So you were saying that you're transitioning your portfolio away from the tenants and toilets through that 1031 exchange. Is that correct?
Yeah, so getting rid of TTT, tenants, toilets, and trash, as we like to call it in the real estate business. So I am doing some 1031 exchange on land development that we own, and my father and I have. And we're going into a Delaware statutory trust in the 1031 exchange, saving on the taxes and not having to deal with it, having to buy properties again in diverse locations throughout the country, which makes it nice, and having professional property managers manage the property, and then on the 15th of each month, collecting your payment, your dividend.
So when you look at that, is that where you see the trust and all that, as that's the generational wealth that you're putting forward into the trust?
Yeah, so you could set up a family trust, okay, and you name who beneficiaries are in the trust. So when people pass on, that trust, you give them rights of ownership. Basically, you say you control everything, but you own nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the trust owns it, you control it, and you could take your passive income out of that trust, but then you could also pass it down to your family members, to your children, and they could pass it on to their children and keep it going if you have the correct wording and the proper team behind you.
And good mindset for the children, not to like destroy the trust, but
Yes, and
hopefully
then
it can
there's another
survive
good
though.
point there too. And not to interrupt you, but another good point too is keeping it in your bloodline of your family. So if your children go on and get married, that trust stays to the bloodline. It doesn't go on to, if it's their husband
Dependents
or
and
wives.
yeah.
Exactly. So it stays within the family and to your grandchildren and so on. So it's how you word your trust and how you set those things all up.
So with tenants, toilets, trash, finding reliable handyman and good tenants, that's always been a challenge. Could you, with all of your experience, could you elaborate a little bit more on how you've overcome those challenges over the years?
No, that's a great question because I had a handyman that's been with us since the 80s. And what was great about this handyman, he lived right next to one of our complexes that we owned, one of our apartment complexes. And he had the master key for everything. And he was never married, but he was like MacGyver. He could fix everything. He had plumbing, heating, air conditioning, you name it, he could fix it. And he was great with the tenants. So if somebody was locked out, John had the key, he would let them in. When somebody moved out of the apartment, half the time John knew before I even knew that somebody was moving out. And unfortunately, then John is now in his 70s and retired. And when
Yeah.
I lost John, he was hard to replace. So I lost one man that did everything for me. I mean, right down to appliances. I mean, how many guys could rip apart a stove and say it's this part of that, or hot water? Oh, it's just the element. I need to change an element. You name it, he could do it. So I thought I had another man that stepped up and tried to help me out, but he doesn't communicate like John, wasn't available 24 hours, 7 days a week. And the key about John is what's hard to replace. And that's why I'm looking at tenants, toilets, and trash. Is John billed me once a year. At
Wow.
Christmas time, he gave me his bill. So all his supplies that he bought online. Not online, excuse me, through my vendors. So my vendors would get paid for the supplies. So if you went and got a new hot water heater or a new toilet or something, I would get an email saying that it was, he ordered it, I paid for it. And it was interesting at the end of the year, we always had more hours tracked than John would bill us. So obviously, he always said, "You're paying me too much," which I loved only paying once a year. But the case was, he was good to us, we were good to him, and we always paid him the extra. So in the meantime, I picked up a new gentleman, and he wasn't as great as communicator, and he's still with me. But in the meantime, is I have a separate plumber, I have a separate electrician, I have other handyman that came in there and helped out. And being a third generation builder, it kind of helped me know some of the trades. So I made arrangements with them to work out on, and I use a program called Appfolio for my
Hmm.
property managers. So like I don't even deal with my tenants; they'll call or they'll leave a message. I'll get a text and an email on it. I pick the
Hmm.
vendor, send it to them. They go out, do the repairs, and I have the same uh, situation with them where they go to the plumbing supply house or to Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware and buy on my account and charge it to that unit number. So I pay the material and then they'll bill me for their labor.
Yeah, it's a guy like John built different from a different generation where, my brother's the only guy I know who will pull a dryer apart to fix the belt. Everyone else is like, gotta buy a new dryer, throw the whole
Exactly.
thing
Yeah.
out.
John was really best. The one time we had a problem with a microwave and it was a fuse. And the best part is he went out his truck, went underneath his dash, pulled a fuse out of his dash, put it into the microwave. The microwave's fixed. I'll get the proper fuse later on and switch the fuses out. But he got it running for the tenant right away. And you don't find guys like that who could be creative and be able to do stuff. Like you said, dryer belts and you
Hmm.
name it. He could fix it, refrigerators. He was always good at that. That's why I
Yeah,
called
the
him MacGyver.
sentiment. Yeah, the sentiment these days is like if you look at it and you look at the labor and you're like, for what it's going to cost me to rip it apart, you might as well get a new one, and then they just, but it's really not the case, like the element on a hot water tank is not $800. It's, you know,
No.
it's a fraction of that cost. So let's talk about the investment strategy a little bit. How do you identify, or how over your career have you identified potential investment opportunities in your area? And what sort of criteria do you use to kind of evaluate them?
Well, as the market changed now, you can't find good value and good properties and properties that make sense. That's kind of hard. Back in the early 90s, I mean, it made sense. You looked at a house and said, okay, if I could buy this property for $100,000, I should be able to rent this out for $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're looking at, if you're making $100 to $200 a door, $200 a door was very good.
Mm-hmm.
So anything over $100 a door on positive income, that's what I would look at. And that's how I made my decisions on that. And I was fortunate enough, again, like I said, of being a third generation builder where we built a couple of the townhouse in the communities ourselves and rented them out. And so that's the big key there. And then I have extra land. That's what I'm doing the 1031 exchanges within the land, keeping the rentals that I have now, and then possibly selling those and going more into 1031 exchange.
So, you know, some people may know you, some people may not, but let's rewind the tape and go right to the beginning. What got you into real estate?
So it was kind of weird when I was in high school. My grandfather had some apartments, and I would just look at it this way and saying, if I had so many houses I could rent out, it was one of these where my grandfather said, if you could dream it, he was an architect and a builder, and I have an architect degree as well. But if you could dream it, you could draw it, you could build it. So the same with the real estate. If you could dream it, write your goals down, you could actually live it. So I was always looking at income that way as a kid, and don't ask me why, because I wasn't brought up that way. We lived below our means, and I would look at if I had so many houses, I could rent so much. But back as a kid, I didn't think of taxes or expenses and the headaches. I just thought of, if I get so much money, I could do very well without really having to work. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's a different story. It's, what you put in, what you get out. So you have to put the hard work in early to be where you're at later on in life. So when I got out of college, I started working for my father at the construction company, and I had an architect degree, associate degree in architecture, business degree, and he took a ladder. an old ladder and cut the bottom rungs off the ladder and says, "You're at the bottom of the ladder, you're gonna work your way up." And I'm like, okay, well then I started doing open houses at the new construction, and I realized there's a lot of buyers coming through that were looking for properties, and the new construction might end up in their fit or they couldn't qualify. So I decided to get a real estate license. And once I got into real estate, if you want to own investment properties and you want to sell investment properties to other people, you have to own and run and manage them yourself. So I started buying investment properties, and it just mushroomed from there.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the tenancies, this is a kind of a follow-up to the investment strategy. Um, how significant is the separate utilities and the quality repairs when looking at your investment strategies? Because some people, um, they're constantly band-aiding their property over the years, slapping it together, slapping it together. And then to talk a little bit more about the separate utilities, the significance of, say, because some people have like a duplex or maybe they have 1 meter and things like that. So how does that play into your investment strategy?
So my goal was, and I still hold true to it, is I have never bought a property with like 1 meter. Everything is separate meters. So I have separate water meters, separate electric meters, separate gas meters, everything's separate. Everyone has their own hot water heaters. As you know, being in the Northeast in the wintertime, it can be
Mhm.
cold. So you could drive by any of my properties and you won't see windows open because they're cranking the heat up and they don't care because the landlord's paying the heat. So
Yeah, I
they're
remember
paying
that.
the heat. And where the benefit also comes in is if they have a water leak, say a toilet's running or a faucet's dripping, they're going to call you right away to come and fix that leak because they're paying for the water bill.
Yeah, it's running up.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead.
going back to repairs, it's always quality repairs. You always have to put good quality in your units. I always say, they would say, don't get, you're not the one living there. It's tenants or rent. But if you put good quality products into the property and you take care of them, tenants are going to take care of your buildings for you if you put good quality products. And you try to also try to get good tenants by doing good, qualifying to make sure they're good. But little things like here's a kind of corny thing is you remove the toilet seats and put new toilet seats on when a tenant moves in and leave the plastic on the seats. So they know it's a new seat on there.
Brand
And
new.
I go through, there's a whole checklist for when you have to clean the units, when you turn a unit over for the cleaning people to do, and you leave that list on the counter when the people move in. Then they fill out a move-in sheet saying that everything was clean, that there's no repairs or nothing needs to be done. And then when they give notice to move out, you give that same sheet back to them, a copy of it, and they'll try to leave your unit the same way. If not, they know they're going to get billed. And in my lease, if I have to change light bulbs, if light bulbs are burned out, or if it needs to be dusted or windows be cleaned, there's a cost already in the lease, so they know what they're paying for. So you take a picture of it. Let's say it needs to be dusted. There's some cobwebs in the corner, burned out light bulbs. You take a picture of it, and it goes right off the lease, and you don't wind up going to court because right
It's
there
the
is spelled out black and
expectation.
white.
Yeah. The expectation
Exactly.
set going on in and on the way out. So you got your realtor's license because of it kind of snowballed into um, helping people that weren't interested in the kind of the new construction. Maybe it was too expensive. Maybe they didn't like the fact that it wasn't like developed, that they'd be waiting years for trees and yards and stuff like that. But when you look at being a realtor, what advice do you have for other investors who are considering working as realtors to kind of enhance their investment endeavors?
Well, the big thing is what you got to watch is if you're going to be an investor and you're going to work with other buyers, is you can't take all the cream off the top. So you can't take the best investment properties that come on the market. You have to
Mm.
offer those to your investors, or no one's ever going to work with you.
Yeah, if you're
Okay.
cherry picking it.
If you're cherry picking, exactly. So what you got to do is, you got to show to your investors where the property is. Plus, you have to show your value and say, look, I own so many properties. I know how to manage. I can help you here and be, the source of their source for information that they need or help that they may get. And that's how you get the referrals. There's a number of families where I've sold people, 20 to 30 units over the years. And now I'm actually helping some of them dispose of those properties into 1031 exchanges so they could pass on to their kids because either their kids don't live in the state or live by, or
Mhm.
they don't want to deal with being a landlord. And this way they
Yeah.
could save on tax. I'm not saying I'm a tax advisor or a financial advisor or anything in that respect, or give any type of legal advice. But if you could point them in the right direction and hook them up with the right people within your team, everyone could profit from that. Now you save somebody money in taxes, and now they're still getting passive income. They're going to love you for life.
Yeah, they're gonna buy another one.
They'll buy another one, or they'll pass you on to their friends, and your referral business just mushrooms.
So let's talk a little bit about success and like lessons learned. So building a seven-figure income is an impressive achievement. So what key factors contributed to your real estate investment success?
There's a lot of keys. The main key is, having systems, setting goals, and be able and stay focused on your business. Always work in your business and on your business at the same time. And the old saying says, buy investment property, let the tenants buy you a building. You got to watch the other landlords or other realtors who will write to your tenants, say, hey, your landlord says hi and thank you for paying his mortgage. So you always have to have watch and be careful of other realtors trying to either steal your tenants or try to buy your buildings. But the key is staying focused. So you got to stay focused on what your end goals are, what you want to do. And if you write your goals down, and I would say it's very simple. There's 365 days in a year, right? So you write your yearly goal, you break it down to a quarter goal, break it down to a monthly goal, to a weekly goal, to a daily goal. I try to learn something new on a daily basis, but I try to prove myself 1 to 2%, you know, one or two things basically a week. If you do that, you got 52 things out of 52 weeks in a year. You picked up 52 new ideas. Um, I'm always educating myself. I'm always taking classes, always learning. Even like this podcast, here I am right now sharing what I've done, but that's over. It makes it look easy, but it's been done over a period of times. There's been good times, bad times,
Mm-hmm.
mistakes and errors made along the way. But if you could learn from other people, there's a lot of great investors, a lot of great podcasts. Back when I got started, there wasn't podcasts.
Nothing. You
You
got
know,
your information on a tape, come in the
yeah,
mail. It's got that big plastic binder. You pop them out, put them in the car, listen to them in your Walkman or
yeah.
whatever it would
Your
have been
Walkman, a
called. Yeah,
cassette. The big
yeah,
guy was Carlton Sheets back in the day, where you try to get information, no money down, and then he went to the CDs, and now I don't even know whatever happened to him. But you listen to stuff like that. There was another gentleman back in the day by the name of Dolph Del Roos, was the same thing from Australia, and it was you just picked up. There were so many people over the years that I've followed and listened to podcasts, listened to emails, bought their tapes, went to their courses, and you learn and you pick up as along the way. And the best part is trying to get a good mentor,
hmm
and that's the key where these podcasts are now, or and what you're doing here is, you could hook up with other people, you could ask them questions, and that's what contributes a lot to the success of where people are today and how fast you can grow. There's a lot of great podcasts out there.
yeah. Like I'm always saying to people that I'm blessed to be in this seat because I get to talk to guys like yourself or people just that maybe haven't been in the business that long, but have done amazing things, and it really just shows vision. You're like, really? You could have 200 properties in a year? And then it gets me thinking, like, well, they could do it. I could probably do it. And, that exposure to things, especially now, like you're saying, is so correct. Is like you look back and you say, like, the limited resources. Now we're in this information age where you could just be on podcast after podcast, listening to this and that and the other. How do you, as someone who comes from an information not the information age in the beginning of your real estate and now continuing that learning journey, how do you see through the noise and guard yourself from the, like, oh, this person said that I should do that, and the shiny object syndrome? How do you stay clear of that with all the information coming at us?
Well, that's a good question. And over the time that you have to adapt with changes. So when I got in the business and you didn't have computers, we didn't fax machines were coming out. Public records, you had to, if you want to find information on the property, you had to go to the courthouse. So
Yeah.
a lot of things have changed. So you always have to take everything with a grain of salt, research, and then ask other people too that are in your peer group and saying, hey, what do you think of this, or what do you think of that, and run it by them. And everybody has their own opinions and their own thoughts, but at the end of the day, you're going to make your own decisions. And like investing, for example, when I was 22 years old, I had a real estate broker ask me, have you ever thought of your retirement? And he basically said, you might want to get some stocks that pay dividends and you want to buy some investment properties. And he also said, if you buy investment properties, then you could work with investors because you know the daily operation, what goes on. And I thought about it. And, back then, as you said about information and how easy it is to pull up on the computer, I didn't know anything about stocks. You didn't have any like Charles Schwab or TD Ameritrade or discount brokerage. You had to go to an expensive broker. But there was a thing called NAIC back in the day, National Association of Investment Groups, that had a magazine. And in that magazine, you could buy stocks that paid dividends that were out working with a broker.
Mm-hmm.
It was a $7 fee to set up. So I set that up and I bought 22 companies back in the day, dollar cost average, dividend reinvestment. And the power of compounding here is like a third person working for me, for my wife and my family. And the way it kicks out a dividend every quarter and pays at the end of the year, it's like a third person working for us. And that's the power of compounding. As Albert Einstein said, there's seven wonders in the world, but the eighth wonder of the world is compounding interest. And that
Mm-hmm.
goes along with your investment properties. Obviously, we all know the word ideal as everyone looks at it, and I don't have to go into that because I'm sure the listeners understand that. But you got that leverage, you got that appreciation, and that all compounds to the main thing is time.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Time in the
this isn't
market.
yeah, it's not a sprint, not even time in the market. It's not a sprint. This is a marathon. This goes on. Okay. This is a long journey, a long run. So if you come out and think you're going to make $1 million overnight, it's not going to happen. What you want to do is build over time. The younger you start, the earlier you get started into it, the more time you have to let your money compound and work for you. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
always say, work smarter, not harder. Have money work for you. I remember Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Success Series. I met Jack Canfield out in Nevada, and what he always said was think of mailbox money, checks coming in every day in your mailbox. And if you think of that and you work on that strategy, that's part of your goal thing. As I said, goals, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen overnight, but you have to build on that.
So you mentioned something interesting that I want to tap into a little bit there. Um, Peer group. How long have you been part of that peer group? What does it consist of? What does that look like for the younger generation of people? Because sometimes as real estate investors, you do have like your local network, but you tend to feel like a little bit of a lone wolf. So where did that start? How long have you been in that group? What does it look like?
Well, the groups that I've been involved with have changed over the years. People have
Mm-hmm.
come and gone. I've gone to different groups and stuff like that. So you have to find some of them now are all online. So there's people online across the country and I don't want to mention other podcasts or anything like that,
Yeah, feel
but
free to if you want. I mean, we're
well,
not
bigger pockets is a big one. That's where I start off with bigger pockets, and I met a lot of different people from there. And like Justin Donald, and then you got the Go Abundance people. And if you're familiar with Go Abundance, the Tribe of
Mhm.
Millionaires, stuff like that. And I met people like I haven't joined the tribe, but I met people through that and we brainstorm and go back and forth with stuff. And then there was local mashup groups in there where I met like the DeRosa group, which is out of like Trenton, New Jersey area. I I can't remember Sergio's first name, but he's down the Philadelphia area that does a lot of self storage areas, stuff like that. So there's different people you meet along the way, and you pick their brains, you talk to them, but it's what you put in is what you get out.
Do you find that you like outgrow them? Because it's the whole five people in the books you read, right? The five people you spend the most time with in the books you read ultimately are going to determine um you go kind of like your environment. So, with your positioning in the real estate, have there been people that had to get off the bus and be replaced over the years? And how do you manage that? Because that toxic environment could derail your momentum. So how are you dealing with that, or how have you dealt with that over the years?
So what you got to do is always got to try to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and that are like you. Okay. And if somebody comes up with a lot of negative thoughts, you just move on,
Mm,
and you got to surround yourself with great people. Right now, I have a good friend of mine who is also a financial advisor who's helping me with the 1031 exchanges. And we're doing, you know, he's like a big brother to me and more than a friend and more than an advisor, and I helped his family out. He's helping me out. I have to surround myself with a good accountant who's actually the accounting firm is a tenant in one of my buildings. And, they make sure my rents are collected. They check on all my bills, my expenses, and my accounting, all that stuff as well. So you have to surround yourself with good people and a good team. Um, I'm in an investment group where it's more of a stock group. And then we don't do real estate, but in there, there's two attorneys in there that I helped the one attorney get a job at the attorney's office as well. And now he's a partner. So you'll have a good legal advice. I have a good insurance agent who's actually a friend of my father's when they were growing up, and now his son's also involved, and we became friends over the years. So you have to have good team members, and that's who
Mm,
you surround yourself with. And it's a simple one a month phone call, maybe, or once a quarter phone call. Hey, how can we improve on the insurance? What do we need to do here? Or we made a change here. How's that going to affect it? The accountant, I'm in the accountant's office almost every day because what I do now is they run my rental business for me.
mhm.
And what I mean by that is they're used to Appfolio, the same program that I use, and they know how to run. All my rents go through Appfolio, so we're going paperless. They put stuff between there and QuickBooks, but like I'll open up my the mail, pay the bills online, mark it which account it came out of, drop it off at their office. They put in the accounting and QuickBooks and make sure that my machine is running smoothly. And then we're double checking on the maintenance guys, okay, they bought this at Ace Hardware, they bought that Ace Hardware, here's the work order, and then it all follows up. And it all goes in, obviously paperless, all through online. And that's the main thing is surrounding yourself with teams. If there's anyone negative on there, we just got to move on, get rid of them.
There you go. So, with real estate investing, there's always going to be challenges along the journey. What are some challenges that maybe taught you some valuable lessons that you could share with the aspiring real estate investors out there?
Well, there's always challenges, and basically comes down to tenants. And I hate to say, I got suckered in sometime and got people that lied to me, and I felt
Hmm.
sorry for them. And then you fall behind in the rents, and then it's 1 month, it's 2 months. You hear their sob stories, and I stopped doing this, but I used to have a list of 500 excuses why my rent is late, and I would make them sign it with the lease and say, please don't use any of these excuses; they have already been used. It's like
They've
the kid,
already been used.
my dog ate my homework. And my attorney said I shouldn't be doing that. I should stop doing that. But you hear, oh, my car broke down,
This, that, and the other. Yep.
yeah. And that's the hardest part, because you do have a heart, you do feel sorry for people, you want to help them out. And no, and I've done that already and helped them out. But that's the hardest part is when you become too close to your tenants.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the future. You said you're going to be putting it all on um, to the 1031 exchange, but how do you envision passing on your real estate assets and knowledge to the next generation? And what steps are you taking to ensure that, I guess, directly with the family? Because you said you're a third generation builder. So how are you
Correct.
passing on that knowledge within, with the trust being a bloodline thing? We want to secure the trust. How are you passing on that knowledge of how to operate it and how to like secure it and grow it um, beyond your years?
So my goal here is to sell off the rest of the land, the lots that we have. Okay. I have a few lots left in one development and a few lots left in the other development, which I'm going to do the 1031 exchanges
Mm-hmm.
and keep the passive income, like I said, comes in the 15th of the month. Now, with my rental units, with all the doors that we have, I like to continue managing them right now for maybe another 10, 15 years, and then probably turn those over to 1031 exchanges or earlier. And by doing that, I could pass it on. I have two daughters who aren't interested in the business. I could pass that on to them. They could get monthly income on that and they could keep that in there where I like to set it up where the principal has to stay in. They could take, each one could get so much of it per month. And then that gets passed on to their children and have that written into the trust. And that's what we're working on right now. And a matter of fact, I was just in a 2 hour meeting this afternoon on with an advisor on how we're going to set that up and how the attorney's going to write and put it together, where we're going to just take it and create generational wealth, pass it on like I hate to say it, like what the Vanderbilts did or JP Morgan or Chase, not on that scale, obviously on a very smaller scale, but this way, hey, it's something that their grandfather left them.
Mm-hmm. I guess you're gonna have to do your own set of cassette tapes and put it in the vault for the sons of your daughters and be like, I want to do real estate. And they dust it off the book It's got your face. How to do real estate, by your grandpa. And you open
Yeah,
it up,
that
like
would
it.
be interesting. That would be neat.
Yeah.
I would, the sad part is like the construction company started in 1950,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and here we are in 2024, and I hate to say that it's ending on my watch, but the real estate is still there. So it's just another branch of it because, it went from construction to land development and construction together into property management rentals. And then I put the resales into it to the title business that I have and then the bank inspection business. So everything I do is real estate related from the bank inspections on the new construction to the title business to the rental. So it's all real estate wrapped around. So
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping maybe my daughter, one of them would get into the title business. So or maybe even the real estate. I don't know, but they're not interested in that. One's a biochem major with a German major. The other one is marketing and advertising. She may consider it, and also a German major. But I think they see how hard I work and what I do. I don't think they really want to do that. So
Well, and it's interesting too because the building and being in real estate is hard work. Real estate adjacent businesses, no matter the market trends, can survive. They're a little bit more weather resistant. So when you look at, the market insights and the trends, what trends or changes have you observed in real estate over the years, and how have you adapted your investment strategy accordingly?
okay, so let's go back to one of the other questions or what you said about real estate. Real estate, got to remember one thing. It could be the easiest, lowest paying job, or it could
Yeah.
be the hardest, highest paying job. Is what you put in is what you get out. Now, for the trends, that's where you have to look at rainy days. That's where the rentals come in. So if you're just strictly real estate sales, you know, it's interesting. I just got a call from the local newspaper. So rates are up 6 or 7%, right? We had
Mm-hmm.
rates that were 2.5, 3% a while ago. When I got in the business in 1990, rates were 12 to 14% interest rate. I had
Yeah.
a lender saying that rates will probably never drop below double digits. That you'll probably never see an 8 or 9% rate. Then rates went drop down to 6, 7%, and that was a normal market. Then they dropped down to 2.5 to three
Three,
percent,
four.
which was yeah. So rent rates were really low. So the paper called me and she says to me, the interviewer, she goes, I can't believe how high these rates are. How are you surviving? How are you doing this? And I says, you know what? Rates aren't high. I said, I remember when rates were at 12 and 14%, and rates dropped when they were at 6 and 7%. I remember a girl in our office doing handstands down the hallway because money was so cheap. I said, we just
Mm-hmm.
came out of a normal market. Our interest rates right now are normal. These are normal rates, and this
Yeah.
is just going to control our economy. Unfortunately, inflation's still going up. We have a lack of inventory of homes yet on the market, so it's still a seller's market.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that's really important. Like one of my mentors is, I think he's maybe 70, 65 or 70. And we were talking last summer about the interest rates. And he just kind of the same thing. He's like, man, when I was buying when in 87, interest rates here in Canada were 18 point something percent. And, things were different and very similar. Everything goes in a cycle. So, if you're listening along on the show here, maybe it's worthwhile finding a mentor or someone in the industry that has the history of the rates in mind, because a lot of these investment teachers and coaches and things like that, um, they're only seeing a snapshot. Maybe they got into the business a decade ago, like myself. I know
Mhm.
what happened in it over the decade, but to have multiple cycles, remembering, oh, remember when it went up and it went down and it went up and it went down, and what did you do and how did it go? So when you look at people coming to you for advice, because I'm sure they do, like the newspaper talking to you, what is your sentiment when you say to them, like, look, it's not that bad, remember this, remember that?
Yeah, so you can't look at the glass as half empty or half full. The glass is always half full in my book, okay? And which in this market right now, you gotta buy, marry the house or marry the property and date the rate,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Because rates will come down again and you could always refinance. So now is still a great time. If you have a good house and a good property, now is the best time to buy than ever. And then when rates drop, you refinance. And if you got time on your side, like when I started when I was 22, I'm now in my 50s, all over that time, you just refinance it. It's like
So
a
you took like
farmer.
a 5-1 and you waited it out, And then when it started bottoming down at like a 2% or 3%, then you went and took in some locked rates.
Exactly. And then once you establish yourself and you build a rapport with a good local bank, okay, and I found out local banks are the best,
Hmm.
and you could get a 25 or 30-year amortization, and instead of doing a 5 or 7, they may do it for 10 or 15 years. And then I always believed in throwing extra money to principal all the time because I hate paying interest, and throwing money to principal and pay the building down. It was almost like another goal of mine, like a race. That's the only time I try to speed things and see how fast I could pay off a building.
Mm.
So I wouldn't take any of the equity. I wouldn't go spend the money and go crazy. I live below my means and they'll throw that extra money right away. So I did side hustles, like I do the bank inspections. So I get paid by the bank inspection. The same bank that's holding the mortgage on my building, they're paying me to go out and do inspections, and I throw that extra money to principal. So it's
With
always,
their own money. They give you the
with their
money,
own
you give it
money.
back to them. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do real estate goes up, real estate goes down. There's the 7-year cycle. How do you balance risk and reward with your investment decisions?
Well, it's interesting how you say it goes up and down. So let's go back when I hate to say this, when I was 5 years old. Okay.
Okay.
Hamilton Street was a main street when we're in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I'm in the Lehigh Valley, so Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton. And the Lehigh Valley Builder Association was going crazy because back in that time, when there was a certain president in line, Carter, you had odd days gas. You could get gas if your license plate ended in an odd number. You got gas on a day. If it ended on an even number, it was the next day. And there was, inflation was crazy, rates were crazy, people were losing jobs, and I didn't know what I was holding, but I was holding a sign, "What about my future?" Sitting on a big front end loader going down the Hamilton Boulevard. So now that I got in real estate, went back and I studied the trends, that roller coaster, like you said, the ups and downs. So you always have to prepare yourself for that rainy day and for the ups and downs on the market. And, if you keep a positive attitude and you work with good people, like I've never, knock on wood, had a down year in the resale business or in my rental business. My rentals, knock on wood, were always full. I always had the security that there was income coming in. So I guess I didn't have to worry about my commission for my next paycheck. Like some
Mm.
people live paycheck to paycheck or commission to commission. So my buyers and sellers felt more relaxed working with me because I didn't have dollar signs in my eyes saying, I got to sell this house
Yeah,
because I got
buy
to feed
this
my
thing.
family.
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
care whether it's the right house, you just buy this house.
Exactly. So if you educate people on that and you show like some reasons why you shouldn't buy that house, like, hey, there's a major crack in that foundation. We should get an inspector to look at that, and you point things out like that to them, and say, hey, we got to look further into this, be the source of the source and get them the information and guide them. And that goes a long way,
Hmm.
and then, there's all different things you could do for people. My biggest business is, believe it or not, is just referrals, and it's
Yeah.
kind of sad now when I'm on the second and sometimes third generation of people, which is kind of scary, where I've sold people when they got a house and they got married, their townhouse, then to a twin home, to a single, and now I'm putting them in a 55 and older community, and I'm selling their children houses.
Hmm.
That's what it's all about. And that's the circle of the real estate coming through. And that's part of the reason why now I'm looking how I can wind down my portfolio. And then I could also advise with people that have the portfolio and say, look, if your children don't want it and they want to get out, I have other investors that could buy your property, but here's what you could do and save on taxes. So it's always to be the advisor and always help them out. Little things at closing when a young couple gets married or stuff, just advise them, or even investors, do you have a will? Is your will updated? Do you have power of
Hmm.
attorneys for each other? Do you have medical power of attorneys? Be the source, get them in the right people. And you refer them and have a good referral out for insurance people, for attorneys, and financial advice. It goes a long way.
Yeah, the
And
trust
that's where I say you
factor.
got to build your team.
Yeah. I can remember showing investors particular properties that I'd find off market. We go downstairs and I'd look around and I'd just look at them and say, this isn't for you. Let's get out of here. Like this,
Mm-hmm.
because if you put someone, like you're talking about the referral business, you put someone into something funny, they don't do well. They tell someone, oh, so and so put me into something funny and da 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 da. And suddenly you've got the reputation for putting people into funny things. So you got to make sure that you're doing good business and you're making sure you're protecting your clients and the people that you do business with so that everyone's winning, right?
And, you asked too about investors that want to get into real estate. What's nice too is if you sell them like a 12 unit or a 4 unit or 8 unit, well, every now and then they're going to have a vacancy. And guess what? A lot of times they're calling you to rent a unit out. So now you're going out and renting it and you're getting first month's rent.
Hmm.
It's not that hard to put I mean, it's hard, don't get me wrong. You have to qualify the people, but if you have the right system and programs, you advertise, you market, you qualify the people, make sure their applications, you do the lease, and you get paid,
Yeah.
and it's just another source of income. Then you take that money and throw it towards the principal of your mortgage, So that's why I say you have different buckets. You have your real estate resale money, you might have the rental money that you get from renting out some of your past clients' buildings, and then your rent. And you have to work smart with it. And you have to set goals of where you're going to put that money and how you're going to finance it, where you're going to invest it, and where you're going to go with it. Always have a
Hmm.
rainy day fund, have a repair and maintenance fund. That's a big key, is maintenance and repair, and also have good insurance.
Hmm.
You have an umbrella policy, have your insurance, have an umbrella policy. And these are where you said who you hang out with, or your group of friends, or your sphere, or your influence of people. That's why I said call your insurance person, have a good rapport with them,
So that they
your
care
financial
about your
advisor.
holdings. Yeah, they
Exactly.
care.
And get an accountant that has properties, have a financial advisor that owns properties. That's all
Hmm.
comes together and plays in your group. And it takes a while to weed through them, but once you find them, they're like gold and you hold on to them.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, well, Tim, if people want to find out more, they want to connect with you, they want your advice, they want your time, what can they do? How do they find you?
Well, I'll keep it real simple. If you want to email me, it's just timtepes@gmail.com, or you can call me at 484-275-0056. And I always say, call TTT, Tim Tepes today.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by.
I appreciate it. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.